The Earth Embassy on the Accord space station Varela gleamed like a polished gem suspended in the void. Captain Lira Myles stood before a viewport that spanned the entire observation deck, arms folded behind her back, eyes scanning the soft glow of the nebulae beyond. Somewhere out there was the future, uncertain, vast, and suddenly darker than it had ever been in her career. A gentle chime broke her thoughts. Ambassador Kaido Sung approached, his robes flowing with each step, the intricate gold trim catching the ambient light. "We just received confirmation. Eos station is gone." Lira turned slowly. "Casualties?" Kaido nodded grimly. "All hands lost, including the diplomatic delegation." The words struck with the weight of a collapsed star. Eos Station had been a beacon of neutrality, one of the Accord's proudest symbols of peace. The idea that anyone would attack it was unthinkable. "Any claims of responsibility?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "None. But the sensor logs, just fragments from a fleeing drone, match Vexari Dominion energy signatures." Lira clenched her jaw. The Vexari, tall, rigid, and wrapped in exoskeletal armor, they were one of the most secretive species in the Accord. Only partially cooperative. Never hostile. Until now. The alarms had begun as a whisper, a distant tremor of red light flickering in the control room's corner. Officer Alina Petrov barely had time to register the anomaly before the entire station buckled. "Pressure breach on Deck 7, someone yelled. "We've lost comms with Jupiter high orbit relays." The station's rotation stuttered. Artificial gravity dipped. Alina slammed her hand onto the command console, stabilizing her display just long enough to glimpse the impossible. A fleet of matte black ships tearing through space, gravity lances spearing out in silent fury. They didn't communicate. They didn't demand. They simply destroyed. She punched in the emergency protocol, her fingers shaking. Only one drone managed to escape before the command center erupted in flame. In her final moments, Alina stared through a viewport as the outer hull of Eos cracked apart, beautiful and terrible. Earth's governments were swift to react. The United Nations fleet was mobilized within hours. The Accord Council convened an emergency session, their chamber a cacophony of languages and lights. But no declaration came from the Vexari. No explanation. No claim. Captain Myles stood aboard her assigned cruiser, the Aegis, watching technicians fit its new particle deflectors and drone countermeasures. Earth wasn't the most advanced member of the Accord, but they'd always been quick to adapt. Relic Voss, the Serene Liaison, and her designated Accord partner slithered beside her on glistening fins. "This silence, it's not strategy, it's fear," he rasped. Lira raised an eyebrow. "Fear of what?" Relic's eyes, silver and translucent, locked with hers. "That they're not the only threat out there." The first counterstrike came near Saturn. A Vexari scout wing appeared without warning, chasing an Accord supply convoy. The Aegis dropped from FTL, weapons primed. "Formation Delta! Keep the convoy shielded," Lira barked. Plasma flak filled the void as Vexari skirmishers weaved between cargo haulers. The Aegis unleashed a full barrage of magnetized torpedoes, each guided by the new Reflex AI modules. Not independent, just quick. No decisions made, only responses. A torpedo locked on, detonated against a Vexari's gravity well emitter. The alien ship crumpled inward, collapsing into itself. Cheers broke out on the bridge, but Lira kept her eyes on the screen. "This wasn't a raid," she murmured. "It was a test." 2 days later, the Aegis joined a strike group of 5 vessels orbiting Titan. With the convoy safely docked at the mining outpost, Lira's crew prepared for a response. Not a reaction, strategy. Lieutenant Harrow, bring up the scan on the rogue debris from Eos, Lira said. The holodisplay shimmered into focus, showing a spread of irregular fragments. Some of this wreckage shows signs of molecular destabilization, Harrow said, frowning. We think they use some form of subspace disruption weapon. First time it's been seen outside of theory, Relek added. Or nightmare. The silence was broken by an alert. Captain, Vexari contacts emerging from fold space. Multiple signatures. Lira turned sharply. Battle stations. Bring the fleet to Line Bravo. Let's give them something to remember. The Aegis accelerated forward, accompanied by 2 serene war cruisers and an armored transport bristling with turret arrays. The Vexari ships, sleek, asymmetrical, humming with dark energy, fanned out, testing flanks. They're baiting us, Relek muttered, trying to see who breaks formation first. We won't, Lira replied. A pulse of green light darted across the stars, then a second, then dozens. Beam fire erupted across the field. Lira watched her crew respond with surgical precision, each movement drilled, calm. Focus fire on their vanguard, she ordered. Harrow, launch shield piercers. The bridge trembled under return fire. A glancing hit scorched the Aegis's port hull, but her torpedoes hit their mark, peeling apart one of the Vexari lead ships. Suddenly, a serene cruiser took a direct hit to its bridge. The ship went dark, then spiraled slowly towards Saturn's rings. Commander Tillis is gone, Relek said, voice cold. We answer. The Aegis surged ahead, launching its entire salvo of EMP scatterbombs, disrupting the Vexari formation. Allied ships regrouped and pushed forward, forcing the enemy to retreat. The skirmish ended 20 minutes later with 2 enemy vessels destroyed, 1 captured, and heavy damage across the strike group. The Aegis limped back toward Titan, scarred, but standing. They didn't expect us to fight like this, Lira said, and next time, we'll be even better. Inside a reinforced containment chamber aboard the Aegis, the surviving Vexari prisoner stood immobile, armored carapace shimmering faintly under the pulsing lights. Several medical scanners floated nearby, unable to breach the energy field that enveloped the alien. Captain Myles stood behind observation glass, flanked by Relek and Chief Analyst Dr. Imani Rhodes. Still no response? Lira asked. Imani shook her head. It doesn't seem to understand our language matrix, or it's choosing not to. Its biosigns are abnormal, Relek added, his fins flaring with unease. Too calm. Too regulated. Lira stepped forward. Open communications. I want to try something. A low hum activated the chamber's speaker grid. Lira spoke clearly, slowly. This is Captain Lira Myles. You're aboard the Accord vessel Aegis. We are not your enemies, unless you continue to make us so. The Vexari tilted its head. Then, to everyone's shock, it answered. The silence of the Accord is over. The stars are already claimed. Claimed by whom? Lira asked. No answer. The Vexari's voice modulation shifted, echoing strangely. You think this began with Eos, but you are too late. Suddenly, warning klaxons blared. Captain, Harrow's voice came over the comm. Unknown signal spike from the prisoner's chamber, some kind of quantum beacon, Lira cursed. Scramble signal containment, now! But it was too late. In the void above Titan, a ripple of fold space opened, and more Vexari ships arrived. The bridge of the Aegis flared with light as emergency protocols activated. Fold space distortions crackled across every monitor. Multiple Vexari ships emerging. 15 confirmed, Harrow reported, eyes darting across the tactical readout. Formation pattern is erratic. They're not attacking yet. They're waiting for something, Relek said, his tone more instinct than analysis. Lira narrowed her eyes. Then let's not give them what they want. Power up the gravitic anchors. Signal the fleet to hold a tight wedge. Outside, the black-veined hulls of Vexari ships began forming a crescent, enclosing the Aegis and her damaged allies. In the belly of the Aegis, the prisoner pulsed faintly, humming with energy. "I want that beacon shut down," Lira ordered. Imani's voice came through the secondary channel. "Captain, it's not just a beacon, it's a network link. Something is broadcasting to the prisoner, not just from it. It's a two-way handshake." Lira's blood chilled. "From where?" "We're triangulating. Not from Vexari space. From outside the mapped galactic shell. Outside the..." Lira didn't finish the thought. Then the Vexari ships moved. Two of them broke formation, darting toward the Accord cruiser Juno. Before anyone could react, the Juno was split open by precision fire. Beam lances that carved straight through its core. "They're targeting communications first," Harrow shouted. "They're trying to isolate us." "Fire at will," Lira ordered. "Prioritize disabling shots. We need prisoners. We need answers." The battle ignited. The Aegis fired its broadside, unleashing grav cannons and shock pulses. Two enemy ships shattered under the volley, while the rest reconfigured in mid-space, twisting into new attack angles. One Vexari vessel launched boarding harpoons. "They're coming for the prisoner," Relek said. "They're not trying to win, they're trying to erase." Lira acted instantly. "Detachment Theta, full lockdown on Deck 9. Get that alien off the ship. Transfer it to the secondary secure hold. No network access, no power relays. Manual override only." The ship groaned under a near-miss explosion. Power flickered. "Captain," Harrow called. "Incoming message, not from the Vexari. It's a Accord command relay. They received our early signal. Reinforcements are inbound." Relief rippled through the crew, tempered by urgency. "We hold until they arrive," Lira said. "We show the Vexari what silence costs." Outside, the void became flame. The Aegis buckled again as another salvo rocked its aft hull. Lira gripped the railing beside her command seat, teeth clenched. The Juno was gone, and the Aegis was down to 40% shielding. Reinforcements couldn't arrive soon enough. "Status of Theta detachment?" she snapped. Relek checked the secondary monitor. "They've reached the internal lift. Prisoner is en route to auxiliary lockhold." Suddenly, Harrow shouted, "New signature, just appeared inside our perimeter. It didn't come through fold space. It just wasn't there, and now it is." On the tactical display, a red triangle blinked angrily. The ship's profile didn't match anything in Accord databases. Lira stared at it. "That's not Vexari. No heat trail, no communications, no ID. And it's moving toward the Vexari line," Harrow said. The mysterious ship swept silently across the battlefront, ignoring both sides. As it neared the Vexari, their vessels hesitated. One even disengaged and pulled back, a first. "It's broadcasting something," Imani said over comms. "Encrypted, hyperfrequency spectrum, non-terrestrial modulation." The Vexari ships began retreating. "Is that why they came?" Lira murmured. "Not for us. Not even the prisoner. For that." Then the unknown vessel transmitted a single signal, a pulse. In response, the Vexari began detonating their own disabled ships. "They're scrubbing the battlefield," Relek hissed. "Not if we beat them to it," Lira growled. "Harrow, prep missile pods 7 and 8. Hit the wrecks before they do. I want salvage, evidence." The Aegis launched 2 missiles just as one of the downed Vexari hulls exploded. The shockwave hit hard, shoving the cruiser sideways, but the other ship, crippled and spinning, remained intact. "We got it," Harrow said. "Hull breach minimal. We might be able to board her." The unknown vessel turned sharply, its silhouette briefly shimmering before disappearing. "Fold space trace?" Lira asked. Relic shook his head. "No fold, no wake, it just vanished." Lira exhaled, then tapped her comms. "Command to Theta, change of plans. Interrogate the prisoner here. I want answers. And if it won't talk, we find someone who will," Relic finished. Outside the viewport, the last Vexari ship fled into the void. The interrogation chamber aboard the Aegis was colder than most rooms on the ship, by design. A psychological pressure point meant to discomfort even the most resilient captives. But the Vexari stood motionless, its shimmering carapace betraying no reaction. Captain Myles entered with Dr. Imani Rhodes and Relic Voss in tow. The door sealed behind them with a hiss. "Begin scan," Lira said. Imani activated the array of low-frequency resonance fields, sweeping the chamber for reactive fluctuations. The Vexari's armor pulsed faintly, but still no movement. No acknowledgement. Relic leaned in. "It knows we have questions. It just refuses to give answers." Lira approached the observation glass, her reflection staring back at her beside the alien's still form. "Then let's stop asking questions it expects." She tapped the comm. "Imani, bring up the data from the salvaged wreckage." A side wall lit with a projected interface. Wreckage data scrolled past. Heat signatures, fractal debris patterns, structural remnants. Then, a section highlighted itself automatically. "That symbol," Imani said, enlarging the display. "We thought it was just a manufacturer's glyph at first." It resembled a spiral pierced by a vertical shard, unlike any Vexari marking cataloged by the Accord. "That's not theirs," Relic murmured. The Vexari moved. A slight twitch. Then a click of internal limbs. For the first time, it looked at them. "That symbol predates your Accord," it said, its voice now steadier, less distorted. "Predates us." Lira stepped closer. "What is it?" The Vexari didn't answer directly. Instead, it said, "There are things buried in this galaxy, inaccessible by time, unreachable by alliance. We were not the first to rise." "You're talking about that unknown ship," Lira said. "We were warned not to search," the Vexari said, "not to dig beneath the noise of the void. But we did. And we found it." Relic's fins stiffened. "The signal you linked to, wasn't that a distress call?" The Vexari tilted its head. "A locator. A seed memory. It activated when you captured me. It heard, and it remembered." Lira's voice dropped to a whisper. "And now it's coming." "No," the Vexari said, almost gently. "It never left." A long silence followed. Then Imani stepped forward. "This spiral and shard symbol. It appears again in the data stream from the mystery vessel. The one that didn't arrive by fold space. The same modulation frequency." Relic looked from the display to Lira. "Whatever that ship was, it's not aligned with the Vexari, but they fear it enough to start a war over its trail." The Vexari turned to face Lira fully now. "You thought Eos was the beginning. It was the interruption. You are stumbling into a game played long before your kind learned to look up." Lira studied the alien. "Why tell us this now?" A pause. "Because it's already inside your Accord," the Vexari said. "And silence was our only weapon." A red alert blared, cutting through the chamber like a blade. "Captain!" Harrow's voice came through the comms. "New contact. Internal. It's not a ship. It's a signal spike from Virella Station." Lira's blood went cold. "Patch it through," she ordered. A harsh screech filled the room, then resolved into a voice. Not human, not Vexari. It spoke in a patternless, shifting cadence. Not a language, a tone, like memory encoded in pain. Then silence. "Dr. Rhodes," Lira said slowly. "Did the signal match anything?" Imani nodded grimly. Only one fragment, from the old Terran Voyager relic, the gold record we sent centuries ago. The first human hello. Relic exhaled. Something answered it, and now it's talking back. The transit to Varela Station took less than 3 hours by emergency skip pulse, but it felt like days. The station, a relic of early Accord architecture, hung like a rusted compass needle over the gas giant Typhon 9, its spires turning ever so slightly in atmospheric drag. Lira and her team arrived to find chaos. The command staff bewildered, power fluctuations rippling through entire decks, and an entire section of the station sealed under emergency lockdown. Imani's eyes darted across a diagnostic holo panel. It's not just interference. Something rewrote access pathways, as if it restructured the signal into the station's memory fabric. Relic frowned. It infected the architecture? No, Imani replied. It became part of it. They moved into the archive core. Normally a quiet place of historical preservation, it now pulsed with low rhythmic vibrations, like a heartbeat echoing in steel. Dozens of data obelisks stood in concentric rings, humming quietly. And in the center, the spiral and shard symbol, etched into the floor in seared carbon. Lira crouched beside it. This wasn't burned with a tool. The heat signature goes down, into the station's foundations. As if in response, the lights flickered, and every screen in the archive lit up simultaneously. Words scrolled across in hundreds of languages. Imani whispered, translating, "We remember the first ones. You called, we were bound. Now we are unbound." Then an image. Not a ship, not a species. A place, a vast chamber, impossibly ancient, orbiting a dead star. Relic recognized it first. That's not Vexari. That's not anything in the Accord register. Lira's jaw tightened. That's where it came from. Suddenly, one of the data obelisks shattered. From within, a small sphere of swirling metallic fluid hovered, pulsing in sync with the vibrations. "Containment now," Lira shouted. But the sphere didn't attack. It projected. A voice, clearer now. One key. One memory. One lock undone. Imani's breath caught. The signal. It didn't just reply to Voyager. It was waiting for us to evolve far enough to understand it. The sphere collapsed into itself and vanished. The lights returned to normal. The spiral symbol faded. But something had changed. Lira turned to the others. "We need to find that chamber, before something else does." The galactic rim was not empty. It was merely unwatched. In the days that followed the incident at Varela Station, Lira stood in the Aegis's command center, reviewing mission proposals. Accord intelligence had isolated the coordinates shown in the alien projection. A stellar corpse on the far edge of the Nembari expanse, long avoided due to fold space instability and magnetic distortions. "That region's not even charted past the preliminary survey routes," Harrow said, frowning at the display. "The last scouting team that went near it didn't come back." Lira nodded grimly. "We're going anyway." A special task group assembled in orbit above Earth. Not the largest, but the most versatile. The Aegis, 2 Serene stealth cruisers, a drone carrier from the Aurelian Clade, and a single unarmed science vessel under direct Accord command. The mission: recon and analysis. No engagement unless fired upon. Relic joined Lira at the viewport before departure. "We're not the first to see this place," he said, "but we might be the last to leave it." 3 days into the voyage, the task force reached the coordinates. The dead star was lightless, surrounded by drifting ruins, impossibly vast structures half swallowed by cosmic dust. They weren't asteroid fields. They were skeletal frameworks of some long-extinct orbital lattice. "It's artificial," Imani confirmed, "and old. Too old." As the ships adjusted formation, The science vessel Oranos extended sensor booms toward a massive ringed structure. Then, without warning, every ship received the same pulse. Not a weapon, a memory. Each crew member saw something different, images flooding their minds. For Lira, Earth burning under twin suns. For Relek, a sea with no stars and something rising beneath the waves. For Imani, a human hand stretching out through time, clutching something that burned with both light and sorrow. The bridge fell into silence. Was that real? Harrow asked. Real enough to make me want answers, Lira said. Scan the ring for an entry point. Minutes later, the Oranos confirmed it. An access corridor sealed in stasis. The Aegis would escort them in. As they approached, the stasis field rippled and opened. Relek hissed softly. We're being invited. Lira's voice was low. Then let's not be rude. The corridor opened like a wound in time. Metallic walls twisted with impossible geometry, angles that hurt to look at, surfaces that didn't reflect light but seemed to swallow it. Every step inside the ringed structure was measured, careful, silent. Lira led the boarding team. Relek, doctor. Imani Rhodes, 2 armored marines, and a drone relay tech named Yuvan. Behind them, the Oranos maintained a hovering scan field, struggling to penetrate deeper than the first 100 meters. This place wasn't built for anyone like us, Relek murmured. Lira agreed. It feels old, like even time is thinner here. They reached what appeared to be a central chamber, a spherical space lit from within by a low amber glow. The walls pulsed, alive with ancient symbols and strange constellations. Imani's voice trembled as she recorded. They're star maps, but not ours. Not even from this arm of the galaxy. At the center of the chamber hovered a crystalline structure. Shaped like a helix, rotating slowly, it emitted a faint resonance that each of them could hear. Not with their ears, but in their bones. Yuvan reached toward it, then paused. Captain, it's reacting to our presence. The crystal's rotation quickened. Then came the voice. Cold, layered, ancient. Recorder status, breached. Contingency access permitted. Initiating query tree. Input, identity? Imani stepped forward. Human, Accord researcher. We come in peace. The chamber dimmed. The crystal flared. Peace was lost. Origin network collapsed. Retrieval protocol failed. Legacy imprint damaged. Lira frowned. What is this place? The voice replied. This is Vault 7 of the Meridian Seed, memory archive of the founding signal. Final warning beacon. Relek turned slowly. A warning. Against what? The crystal pulsed once. Then it showed them. A vision of stars going dark. Entire systems folding inward, collapsing not into black holes but into absence. Voids that no longer obeyed physics, time, or gravity. At the center of each, a flickering shard of the same spiral symbol, now twisted and cracked. Yuvan dropped his scanner. It's not a weapon. It's a sickness. Imani whispered. It's consuming reality. The vision ended. The crystal's resonance slowed. Time is fracture. Memory is root. You must carry the shard. A panel opened beneath the helix. Inside, a smooth obsidian disc floated above a pedestal. Lira looked at the others, then stepped forward and lifted it. Cold, light, humming with pressure. Relek stared at the disc. That's not a tool, that's a key. Back aboard the Aegis, alarms flared. Captain, Harrow called. Multiple fold signatures, not Vexari. Unknown classification. Lira clenched her jaw. They followed the signal. Outside, space twisted. Shapes emerged. Massive, angular, gliding without propulsion. And all of them bore the broken spiral. Space had never looked so quiet. From the Aegis's command deck, Captain Lira Myles watched the foreign vessels drift toward them. No visible engines, no lights, no heat signatures, just geometry, impossible and pure, sailing effortlessly against the backdrop of stars. "Still no communications?" she asked. Harrow shook his head. "Nothing. No pings, no frequencies, not even background static. It's like they're absorbing the spectrum." Dr. Imani Rhodes stood beside the obsidian disk, now mounted within an isolated sensor cradle. "The disk is pulsing in tandem with their movement. I think it's anticipating them." Relic Voss's voice was unusually quiet. "This is not a fleet. It's a delegation." A moment later, one of the objects changed shape. No sound, no light burst. It simply collapsed inward, then unfolded into something new. A bridge, stretching from the void directly to the Aegis's outer hull. Lira stared. "Are they boarding us?" "Technically," Harrow muttered. "They're inviting us." Lira led the team again. Relic, Imani, 2 guards. They stepped onto the bridge. Its surface was not metal, not synthetic, but something closer to thought made solid. It shimmered as they walked, refracting past memories like reflections in water. At the midpoint, a being waited. Tall, faceless, woven of layered strands of dark filament that shimmered as though threaded with starlight. It spoke without moving. The voice came from the air around them. Recognition, partial. Pattern response, probable. Memory thread aligned. Lira stepped forward. "Are you responsible for the vault?" "No," the being replied. "We are its result. The vault is a wound. We are the scar tissue." Imani frowned. "What is your purpose?" "To delay collapse. To stall what consumes." "You activated the memory root. That action cannot be undone." Relic narrowed his eyes. "The sickness, the spiral." The being tilted slightly. "It is not malevolent. It is not sentient. It is entropy made recursive. Legacy systems called it the null bloom." Lira's breath caught. "It devours reality." "Yes, it is not alive, but it evolves. It learns by erasing. It adapts by subtraction." The obsidian disk shimmered in Imani's hands. "You hold a seed key," the being said, "a remnant of the prime recall. Its function is singular, to anchor memory across a dying continuum." "Anchor it? Where?" Imani asked. The being turned slowly. Behind it, the bridge opened into a void filled with echoing stars, points of light frozen mid-collapse. "You must take the key to the coreless place," it said, "where no law remains. There, a choice will anchor one history over another." Relic stepped forward. "And if we don't? Then your accord falls. Your species forgets. Your galaxies unwind, not in flame, but in silence." Lira met its faceless gaze. "Then guide us." The being stepped aside. "Follow the fracture," it said. "We will slow what hunts, but only memory can survive." They crossed the final step of the bridge. Behind them, the shapes in the void shifted, holding their line, guardians of a road long buried in the dark. The jump to the coreless place could not be plotted. It had to be felt. The alien delegation had left a path, encoded not in space, but in the quantum memory of the seed key. Imani interfaced it with the Aegis's drive core using an isolated override module. The result? Coordinates that defied physics. "This isn't navigation," Harrow said. "It's storytelling. The ship thinks it's remembering where to go." Lira checked the final sequence. Then let it remember. Initiate the pulse. Fold space split around them. Not a tunnel, but a fracture. The Aegis fell sideways into it. The coreless place was not a location. It was the echo of something missing. Stars were there, but only as ghosts. Light bled slowly, as if unsure it was still allowed to shine. Space bent inward and didn't return. Even time resisted. At the center was the bloom. Not a ship, not a being. A fractal storm, blooming and collapsing endlessly. A recursion of entropy, black veins threading into nothing, devouring gravity, memory, thought. Relic whispered, "We should not be here." But the seed key pulsed steadily. "It's leading us to an interface point," Imani said. "A convergence layer, where a decision can be written into the structure of reality." A docking field opened. As the Aegis approached, it passed through shells of time. Echoes drifted past the hull. Old transmissions, forgotten languages, even images of lost ships from centuries ago. One final corridor extended. Lira stepped onto the platform with Relic and Imani beside her. The seed key hovered above her palm, now warm and humming. They entered a chamber. Inside, nothing. Pure silence. Until the chamber asked, "Which memory will be saved?" Lira hesitated. "What does that mean?" The voice, no longer mechanical but deeply human, responded, "You cannot stop the bloom, but you can choose what one truth survives it. One story to seed the next cycle." Images filled the space. Earth, the Accord, the Vexari, the first contact, the war, the vault, the bridge. All of it flickering, fracturing. Relic stared, stunned. They don't want victory, they want continuity. Imani looked to Lira. "Captain, you have to decide." The seed key floated higher. The voice repeated, "Which memory will be saved?" Lira closed her eyes and chose. The choice rippled outward. The moment Lira made it, without speaking, without gesture, the seed key flashed once, a brilliant burst of deep violet light. The chamber dissolved. Not into darkness, but into a glowing lattice of threads. Each thread a memory, a timeline, a branch that could have been. They stood on nothing, yet remained grounded. Around them, fragments floated. Eos Station, the shattered Accord Council, the face of the Vexari prisoner, the unknown ship, the vault. And then, the bloom reacted. It pulsed as if struck. The storm receded at its edges. Not halted, but rerouted. Somewhere, in the structure of Untime, the story Lira chose became an anchor. "It worked," Imani whispered. "Something is holding." Relic stepped beside her, eyes locked on the lattice. "It's reintegrating. Rebuilding from a single thread outward." They were pulled back. The Aegis reappeared in normal space, or something like it. The stars were subtly different. Some burned with familiar light. Others were absent, like pieces of reality still waiting to be rewritten. "Report," Lira called. Harrow's voice came over the intercom, cracking slightly with emotion. "We're back, Captain, near Varela Station. But something's changed." "Explain." "There are 2 moons around Typhon 9 now. There used to be 1. Imani stared at her console. The Accord database is intact, but the early history has gaps, filled with unfamiliar names, like we're reading a version of ourselves that almost matches. Relic turned to Lira. "We seeded a memory, but the rest is still adapting. We gave them continuity, but not clarity." Lira nodded. "Then we start again. We build again. This time with what we remember." The seed key lay silent in her hands. But for a moment, just before she closed her fist around it, it pulsed one final time. One echo. One thread. Still connected.